Football Show, NorthJerseySports.com's original multimedia series, talking all things football across North Jersey. The playoffs are here, and we are knee-deep in it. I am Corey Doviak, being joined by my illustrious panel of North Jersey football insiders, starting with the venerable one, Jimmy Avatable. What's going on, Jimmy?
What's up, Corey? Rain, go away.
You got that right.
That's crazy. And again, they're talking rain Friday night, so, it's been a tough 6 months of weather, let's put it that way.
Doesn't Mother Nature know that the state football playoffs in New Jersey need to be held unabashed here? I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. Knocked me out of soccer coverage today. I mean, I'm an old man. I can't be standing on the sidelines in the rain. It cost me my Friday night coverage. I was there for the first half of Old Japan's win over Passaic Valley. Halftime, rain, in the car, gone. So, I feel you, brother. And the other member of our crew, normally I would introduce him as the head Husky. But this week, after his travels across the wide swath of New Jersey, joining us now on the Felician University hotline is Mr. Sussex County himself, Brian Carr. What's going on, Brian?
Hey, going back to my growing up roots to going to camp up in Newton. But for the record, Sussex County, the first week of the playoffs was 6-0. 6-0 out there. So, nice road trip. But we kind of dodged a little weather. We got to see New Milford before the rain on Friday. Westwood, it started about halftime, ran up into the box with the guys. And then we dodged weather out west, up there in Sussex County. So, got to see 2 games out there. Quickly went up to see Kittatinny with Mawa. And then we got to see Sparta and a little bit of Lakeland in the second half. So it's good to catch 4 games in 2 days.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so on tonight's show here, we're going to discuss what happened last week. We're going to preview what's coming up this week, and we're also going to talk to a guy that I'm looking forward to having on. We've branched out a little bit, and we're going to have John Jacob, the offensive coordinator of the Wayne Hills Patriots, is going to join us. And I don't know if we've ever had a Wayne Hills representative on the football show in the 6 years that we've been doing it here in our current format. So it'd be nice to get a different perspective. He's also the communications director of the New Jersey Football Coaches Association, too. So we'll also touch on some of the things going on around the structure, the current structure of the New Jersey high school football playoffs. So we'll get into all of that stuff. But first, let's take a quick look back at last week. And, Brian, I got to start with you because you put the miles on the car, or at least in the passenger seat. Sussex County, looking at your pictures, looking at your tweets and everything else, you should have posted them in black and white. It has that 1950s feel to it. Saturday afternoon football, grass fields. And, Kittatinny took care of Mawa, and I forget where the other game you were at is, but, give us a sense. Oh, and Sparta, too. Give us a sense of, West Jersey football, which, since they've lost some enrollment, they've come down. I remember Vernon back in the day was a Group 4. Now it's down to a Group 2. A lot of these teams are moving down the enrollments, and I think it's better for the competitive balance. These teams can compete a little bit more nowadays.
Hey, they've got some good football out there.
Yeah.
Like I said before, 6-0 on Sussex County this weekend. Kittatinny is a solid team. They got a stud. This running back, he's a junior, Jacob Mappo. He scored 2 TDs, a handful. They couldn't get him down.
Right.
The one thing you notice up there, fields are mostly grass.
Yeah.
So, we saw a little mud up there in Kittatinny. The field was playable, but muddy. It's sloppy. So, teams are used to playing on turf field. You got a little challenge when you get a little mud. But Kittatinny looks real good. They have a nice quarterback, James Franco, 4 TDs. He's solid, plays defensive back. There's some good football up there. And then, so they took care of Mawa pretty handily, Kittatinny. They got up about 28-7, and Mawa just couldn't come back on them and lost 47-18. Got a chance to also then jump over and see our friends over there in Sparta, where we saw early in the season, Jimmy was up there, we saw Sparta play a very competitive game against Ramapo. Sparta had got up, they were up 21-7 at halftime, and then the Lancers, Lakeland, came back and got it within 21-16. So it was a very competitive game. And then they held them off. Sparta was able to hold them off, turn the tide. There was a little wind up there that it was blowing more to the south. So when you were going south, you had the advantage with the wind. And so third quarter, Lakeland had the win and was able to get within close. And then it turned around and Sparta had the win. So, punting was a little harder in the wind, throwing in the wind. So, but Sparta just, hung on and fought off a determined Lakeland team to roll. So Sparta's going to, looks pretty good and looks like they're ready to head off into Bergen County now. They have to come down and play their nemesis and visit the Ramapo, the Raiders. So that's coming up this week.
Yeah, Jimmy, interesting to get your perspective on this because, it was a close game. I think it was 21-18. Richie Ballgame covered it for us. That game in Sparta, the opener for both teams. Going to be a different ball game, though, on the turf on Friday night in Franklin Lakes.
Yeah, you mentioned opening day. Ramapo jumped out 14-0, maybe with under 2.5 minutes gone in the first quarter. It was 14-0. And it seemed for the first quarter, Sparta, new quarterback, a lot of new starters, really didn't find their identity to halftime. But I'll tell you what, Sparta's always a tough out, and you know that. They've been a perennial team in that bracket that can do damage. And, Ramapo is more talented. Hopefully they'll be able to spread it out, throw the ball effectively. I would expect Ramapo to get through, but Sparta's never an easy game.
Yeah, and as you said, with the weather expected on Friday night, Ramapo likes to, fling the ball around, use a lot of different receivers and everything else. And, depending on wind, rain, everything else, it could be an X factor in that game too. But I certainly expect the Green Raiders to progress. Jimmy, from last week, because we're going to talk to Coach Jacob shortly, but just what stuck out to you last week? Any surprising results, any impressive results, anything you would like to comment on?
Yeah, obviously you have to mention Wallkill Valley going into New Milford. Obviously New Milford's been banged up the last half of the year. Coach Billy Wild was missing some starters. New Milford jumped out 7-0. Brian, you were at the game, and Wallkill Valley scored the next 34 to put it away 34-7. As Brian mentioned, you got Wallkill Valley's another one of those Sussex County teams that, that North 1 Group 1 bracket along with Butler. I think another fabulous game this Friday night is Boonton, very high-powered offensively, and Park Ridge survived 49-34 over Presco. If you're into offense, you can take a look at that Boonton Park Ridge game. That should be good. Wallkill Valley probably has the best defense in that section. They've only given up, I believe, 74 points so far. So Butler and Wallkill Valley. Butler's only loss is to Asbury Kites, who, as we know, is undefeated. And that was played on a Friday night in a monsoon on another grass field. So, Butler is very dangerous. I just have a sneaking suspicion Wallkill Valley pulls the upset on Friday night over Butler.
Yeah, well, interesting report on that is that Butler, that game, Mother Nature has already affected that one because they're going to play on the turf at Pequannock High School on Friday night. They already switched that game, so it's not going to be a mud bowl in Butler. It'll be on the turf, which probably helps Butler a little bit. Bri, how about you, Bri? Other than the games you covered, results?
Just when you see that about Wallkill Valley, they have a quarterback, Mastriani, and he's really good, 5 touchdowns. He could run and he could throw. And then he also, he mixes it up. So, he's a threat at all times to score, to run, to pass. But they're really good. It was a really good game, and, it was tough to watch New Milford, a local team, go down there. Other surprises, not too many that I really could say. Hey, a good win for Lyndhurst. Lyndhurst came out and won 35-14 against Hanover Park. We saw them back on a Saturday. Their only loss they lost was in overtime to New Milford.
Yep.
Peter Parlay, he had 28 carries for 212 yards, 4 touchdowns, and I think he got 2 sacks. He's got like 14 sacks on the season. So Lyndhurst looks to be in good shape. They haven't been here in a few years, but I like them quite a bit, and they're going to be somebody to contend with. Not going to be an easy win for Verona. I'll mention Verona. I had said this on the Verona game playing my Huskies. The key to Verona they have their running back, Reggio, and you can't stop him. He's the key to stop. And sure enough, against Dumont, he ran for 200 yards. He had 3 long touchdowns. And, hey, by the way, the Huskies, just for the record, they had it close. They were only down 14-7 second quarter. So they were somewhat competitive. They just couldn't slow him down. We saw that when we were up there. We were up in the game up in Verona. We saw Cedar Grove have a hard time with him. So no surprise there. Lyndhurst is going to be up for a challenge there to be able to stop that team. Because, Verona can run very well. So it's going to be a good game. So I like Lyndhurst a lot. And it's good. And the only 2 losses for Verona, they lost to Shabazz and Wanacue, 2 teams that are undefeated.
Weequahic.
And they're in the Group 1. Weequahic.
Yeah.
They're both undefeated. So they played 2 good teams. Those are 2 good teams. So Verona's a team to reckon with in that group, and likely potentially to get out of that group and make some noise.
Yep.
I think they could be the winner in that bracket. Buckford's going to have a tough time if they get there as well.
I will just add that Richie Ballgame covered Booton on Saturday. They have a player that I'm sure Jimmy would love to watch, Joe Cannizzaro, who's a fullback, which is, a trade not often employed except in Group 1 football nowadays, and he also plays middle linebacker. He had over 200 yards rushing against Emerson in the first round in a Booton win. And he had a bunch of tackles, too. The guy made the biggest impact on the game, 4 touchdowns. He probably never ran outside the hash marks all day long, Jimmy.
Probably not outside the tackles.
Yeah, right. He's dominating from inside a phone booth. All right. We're going to get to the other games that we're looking forward to this week. And one other interesting stat. The only team, and I'm only talking about teams that are in our coverage area, Bergen, Hudson, Passaic County, there's only one team lower than a number 5 seed left playing when you talk about no surprises, and that's Wayne Valley in North 1 Group 4. They're the number 6 seed, and they pulled, I guess, what you could call a mild upset. They're going to play Old Japan this week. So, pretty much the only games that you could, a couple of 5s got through. No 7s, no 8s. So pretty much chalk first round of the state playoffs. All right, gentlemen, well, let's welcome in our guest this evening on this edition of the football show. He is the offensive coordinator of the Wayne Hills Patriots, joining us off of last week's opening round win in North 1 Group 4, 41-14 over Mount Olive. So, Coach, thanks for joining us here on the football show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and at playoff time, we get excited about it around here. Excited to talk about it. Just give us the quick, state of the state of the Wayne Hills Patriots here. The number 1 seed in North 1 Group 4 and looking to make another great run.
I think that our team is starting to gel together pretty well. I think they're developing some good chemistry, especially in the later part of the season. I think we've got a good section, some good quality team ahead of us, and Morris Knowles, a real disciplined team. They lull you to sleep with with their option. They run it very well. Last week we saw them against Northern Highlands, and they're methodical. They got a good game plan. They're going to look to hold the ball on you. I think on the other side of the bracket, we got a great game with Old Japan and Wayne Valley.
Yeah, I mean, the bracket for Wayne Valley to still be alive 2 years ago was one of the greatest games we've ever seen in high school football. The state final at the MetLife Stadium between the 2 Wayne public schools. It was great. And obviously we know that Old Japan, in full transparency, my daughter being the manager of the Fighting Golden Knights, we root for them quite often around here too. But, usual cast of characters in North 1 Group 4, and Morris Knowles being the outlier kind of. It's not the kind of team you want to fall behind because they can run the clock, force you into some things, maybe rush a little bit, and if they can take some time off, it plays into their hands. So, you maybe try to push the pace against them this week a little bit?
Well, I think our top priority is going to be to try to keep their offense off the field because it's something they do well. You could you turn around and they could take 8 minutes off the clock offensively.
Right.
That's their game. They're very good at it. So, our objective is going to be to defensively to get off the field and give our offense as many shots as we can give them. That's kind of when our offense thrives is when we get more shots. So, our guys are working hard at doing that. It's certainly going to be a challenge, but I'd like to think it's a challenge that our guys are up for.
Brian, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, talking about the team, why don't you talk about some of your key players? I know quarterback you have up there Tom Sharkey. You also have Jarek Hayek. Hayek last week had 4 touchdowns. Tom Sharkey's having a really good year. He's got almost 2,000 yards passing. Talk about some of those guys. I know I didn't mention the JUCO, who's a big receiving threat. Tell us about some of these offensive guys you got.
Yeah, we're really blessed with some strong offensive players, real difference makers, guys who have big play, explosive play ability. Tommy's been a great addition to our team. You just rattled off some of his stats, and those are great. But I think probably what'll unfortunately a lot of people that are on the outside don't get to see is more his his daily work ethic. What he brings to our team every day. He's got a lot of grit. He's a tough kid. He cares a lot. He's a really strong leader and has a great presence. So obviously he's been nothing but a great addition to our offense. And you mentioned Jaron. Another just probably one of the top players in New Jersey football. He's explosive. He's so versatile. We're lucky to have him because we put him in so many different places. We use him all over the field. From a skill standpoint, he pretty much can play any position. And obviously having Charles out there, Charles a great story. He had a good junior year, and he has he really put in a lot of work in the off season, and he's really becoming an elite receiver.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, Coach, we were at your Ramapo game about 4 weeks ago, and it wound up being a tough night for you guys, but it appears that you guys have come back strong. What did you learn during the Ramapo game, and how have you guys improved since then?
I think Ramapo game. I think we had an untimely turnover. Before the half that I really kind of hurt us. Kind of hurt our momentum and kind of shifted the momentum in their direction. I think that we got off schedule and played outside the chains a little bit that game as well. So they're basic things that you preach, but I think that game in particular, those two areas of our offense really got exposed. And it's certainly a battle we're going to continue to try to fight. Whether we win games or lose games, obviously trying to reduce, keep the turnover ratio in our favor, and make sure that we're staying inside the chains. No stupid penalties, nothing that's going to keep us off schedule. So that was kind of the case. We also we had a situation that game we were down inside the 5-yard line. We didn't get the ball in. So, that was a little disheartening at the time, but I'd like to think that we've addressed those things and we moved on. They're a great team. Tip our hats to them. We always have great games with them. So, I think we've grown since that game for sure.
Coach, I've covered Wayne Hills for a long time now. I used to work for a paper out in Passaic County, the Suburban Trends, and we used to dip down into the Wayne area quite a bit. And I remember, the days when Wayne Hills had trouble winning state championships. Chris Olson's early years at Wayne Hills, I remember covering a game on a freezing day at Hudson County Park against North Bergen with a kid named A.J. Spicer, a couple other ones. And then, Coach Olson obviously got over the hump and went on one of the greatest tears in the history of North Jersey football. How is it for you? Obviously Chris Olson's legacy is still there. There's a lot of connections. And, how is it for you being, an intimate part of this staff that's really carrying the Wayne Hills tradition year in and year out?
It's an honor. It really is. It's an honor. You feel humbled. You kind of feel special to be involved in a program like this. what Coach Olson did, I mean, obviously it speaks for itself. He built such a strong culture of toughness and grit. And, it's obviously now we're here, we're benefiting of it. I'm benefiting from it. I'm sure, Wayne would tell you the same thing. All the guys on our staff, they would tell you the same thing. We have quite a few former Hills players. And, I think, that's probably one of the most impressive aspects of the program. Being there now 6 years is the culture of toughness, the culture of grit and commitment that Coach Olson instilled in that program. It still exists. It really does. And I think I think that the more you move on in time and the more advanced we become, from a societal standpoint, technology and things like that, and the things that kids are involved with, I still think that it's a strong part of what we do, and that's it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, it really is unbelievable. There's a few of them, a few of those programs around. You think of Montclair, you think of the Old Tapans, you think of you can name 100 of them, but the staying power, the staying power of a public school, it's no accident. It is a culture. Brian, you got another one?
Yeah, that's a good point. I look at Wayne Hills. They have 28 playoff appearances, 18 times in the finals, and they have 9 titles. And the record is like 45-19 in the playoffs, so pretty successful program. Hey, Coach, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I noticed you were up at West Orange for about 8 years, I guess 2004, maybe before, and up to 2012. Why don't you tell us about your career up over there, how you got there, and maybe how you ended up at Wayne Hills?
I was there for about 10 years. It was a great experience. I had great kids there. It was when I was taking it over, it was a place that inconsistent and kind of didn't feel that there was a real established protocol or program. And in fact, it's funny because one of the schools that in my early years at West Orange that I visited a lot was Wayne Hills. I was friends with William Demikoff, for a long time now, going back 15, 17 years probably. And, I had reached out to him to kind of, get introduced to Chris. And I said, listen, I'm kind of obsessed with the way that you guys do things. And, my staff and my staff felt the same way. So I actually spent a lot of time with those guys, sort of, searching that blueprint. And researching the kind of things that they were doing. Them amongst a couple other programs. And then, I think the rest of the years it spoke for itself. We got a lot better. I think we improved a lot. We had a lot of firsts for the program. We had the third playoff appearance in the history of the school, and then we had the first playoff victories, first home playoff games. We had most wins in a season. Broke team records, individual records. I think we got better, and I think we were creating that culture of toughness as well. And like I said, it's ironic that Chris and Wayne Hills was one of the places that I kind of picked up that blueprint from. And in 2012, I was no longer at West Orange, and I obviously thought that what Wayne was doing, Wayne was and I'm sure Chris would say that Wayne was a very integral part of their success over the years as their defensive coordinator.
Right.
And, we were talking, and I was contemplating taking a year off of football and then maybe applying for another head job or just shutting it down for a year and just kind of going out and visiting schools and seeing what people were doing. But he had gotten the job, and he said, listen, why don't you let a few of your guys come over? And obviously, I think the world of him, and I think he's done an outstanding job, preserving this program and building it even stronger. And I decided to go on with it, and this is kind of history.
Yeah. It's good. Jimmy, you got one more? And then I want to ask Coach just, a couple things about his other role.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, you mentioned being around Coach Olson and spending some time there, and obviously you've been on Coach Demikoff's staff for a bunch of years. What do you see as the similarities between the two coaches and maybe some of the differences?
I think there's a lot of similarities in their core beliefs And I just think that, I think one of the great things about Wayne is that, and I always admire this about him. He managed to create a really good balance of maintaining those basic core principles of the program, the toughness, the work ethic, the commitment. At the same time, he brought in guys that he trusts, that he believes in. One thing is that, the guys who are coaching have full autonomy to coach. I have full autonomy to run the offense. I have full, which, you have to have confidence as a coach to do that. You can't have much insecurity yourself. The best part was that he didn't try to be Chris. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He's just himself. He's the best version of himself. But, definitely valued all those core principles that Chris, preached and sort of built this program on, and Wayne continues to build on those, find ways to transmit those, that core message to our base, to our parents, to our kids. So, that's where I kind of see how that whole dynamic exists, is that he did a great job of continuing on with the tradition, but in his own way, putting his own stamp on, his own personality on it, and being himself, most important.
Right. Yeah. No. All right. So I want to ask you about your other role as the New Jersey Football Coaches Association Communications Director. And, some of the steam has been taken out of the madness as far as playoff seedings and playoff planning and playoff this, that, and the other thing, Born Power Index, PowerPoints, all those other things. I mean, it was a hot topic of conversation last week. Thankfully, it's been overtaken by the action on the field as the state tournament got underway. But, just from your perspective, do you want to say anything about the way it was handled, the way, from the NJFCA's perspective about, any message that you want to get out there on behalf of the organization about this whole thing, the way this whole thing played out?
Well, I mean, basically the same message that was, that's been conveyed recently through some other media outlets. I myself, a couple other executive members have been contacted regarding the matter, and to be honest with you, and I even told you this out there. I would say this to you on air. Our intention isn't to point fingers or lay blame. Or what we did want our members to know was something that we let them know back in the spring. But sometimes people when information gets out, maybe they're coaching other seasons, or sometimes information goes by the wayside for a multitude of reasons. But we had actually requested that we kind of hold it off, that we would hold off for a year. We did a formal request that we can hold off a year with any kind of PowerPoint or seating modification, just because we kind of felt there was a lot to digest with the United plan being approved.
Right.
And we would have obviously liked for that position to be taken and followed through with, but it wasn't, and it's not that it was it's not that it was shut down as something that had no merit. It was just kind of, we're not saying that your suggestion doesn't have merit, but we're going to keep moving forward with this. This is going to be the next steps that we're going to take. So, there was some misinformation within the last month about the NJFCA's approval of this, or the NJFCA's passness, and the NJFCA doesn't have the authority to pass anything or vote on anything.
Right.
We're more of a lobbying organization on behalf of our coaches.
Is there one thing that your organization and the others should take up, or for next year? Is there any urgency to change this, or do you think that with the way things played out in the first week of the playoffs, and that initial rush of people digesting this information has now died down? Is there anything pressing that needs to be changed immediately, or is next year maybe let it sink in a little bit more and see what happens?
Well, I do. I do think there. I do, and I would venture to say that when the season is over, I'm just I can't say I know this, but I would
Right.
imagine the NJFCA would probably believes that there's elements of this that are going to have to get examined. And I know for sure because I speak with a lot of coaches and I've had a lot of coaches contact me regarding some aspects of this system that is very concerning to a lot of coaches.
Right.
So, yeah, I do think there are issues that need to get addressed. I just think that before they get addressed, I think that all of our coaches, and I think everyone that has every stakeholder that's involved with this just has to really understand all the layers to this situation because it's very complex.
Yep.
You know, I know you've heard the history from some people involved, and it's just a very complex matter that ties into so many other areas that are important to New Jersey football.
Yes. No doubt about it. And you know, just from my perspective and doing some thinking on it and talking to a lot of people too, you know, maybe this North and the South, we cut ties a little bit and, you know, each one do what's in their best interest. But I don't expect you to comment on that because it was a perfect segue. You said there's things that have to be done. Now we have your cell phone number. So maybe we'll be back in touch next year before all the madness starts again and we'll get some updates. But John Jacob, offensive coordinator for the Wayne Hills Patriots. A pleasure to meet you here for the first time on the football show. We will be watching this weekend, and should you make it, we will see you in the state final. Best of luck, and thanks for joining us.
Likewise, thank you.
All right, gentlemen, good stuff there with John Jacob, the newest member of the football show for family here. We appreciate him coming on in advance of their game this weekend against Morris Knowles. Let's take a further look around what's coming up this weekend. Brian, why don't we start with your thought process? This is always fun to get into. What are you thinking about as far as the schedule this week? And that will lead us in the direction of the games to see, because we know you only like to be where the action is.
Yeah, and I'm always looking for what do I think is the best game to go see. So this week, I followed Paramus for a number of years. We've seen them some good programs with Dan Sabella. Obviously, really good, have 10-0 this year. So I'm looking to go see the rematch with them in Riverdale. Riverdale are always a very competitive team and been in the playoffs, since 2007 every year. So I'm looking to an exciting rematch of a regular season game, 20-13 game, and go over there at 6 o'clock start. And then from there, I can depend on where the action is. I may go to Westwood. Maybe I run up there and see Westwood, play a very competitive Kittatinny, who I just saw last week. Or I could possibly run down to Hasbrook Heights and see them play a weak lake, a very undefeated weak lake against an undefeated Hasbrook Heights team. So those are kind of my inclinations for Friday night.
Yeah, and Westwood, with the 23-13 win over Glenrock last week, it almost slipped my mind here. We should go back and review that game, as you so often do, with the guys from WCTV. So in advance of Westwood Kittatinny, let's take a listen back to your thoughts with Larry LaFreary and John Francola, the outstanding crew at WCTV.
Brian Carr here, North Jersey Sports. Quick reaction to the Westwood Glenrock game. Westwood wins 23-13. Very determined Panther team made it a battle for Westwood. Guys, what do you think? John, Larry?
Wow, that was a tough game for both teams. They left everything on the field. You had everything in here. Interceptions. It's amazing. Westwood had 3 turnovers for special teams in the end of the first half, beginning of the second half, and they still found a way to win by 10 points. It's amazing. Had everything. This game had everything. Great plays, and not so great plays. Just wonderful. A hard game. Both teams played their hearts out.
But Larry, with our number 24, Willie Mays had that unbelievable interception where he tiptoed through the tulip, 70 yards for a score, had another interception, scored a touchdown. Without him, this would have been a loss today. Another important guy was T.J. Constantine, a field goal kicker, 3 out of 4 kicks.
Big one.
Big one. The last one sealed it.
Last one was about 30 yards. He had to kick it in the rain with a little wind. He bangs it through, makes it 10 points. It's a big difference being 10 up than 7 with the team with Glenrock getting the ball.
But let me tell you,
it's a tough game for Westwood.
Glenrock played one heck of a game. Jim Kurtz, the coach there that we ran back 23 years ago when he scored a touchdown against Westwood at the 8 field, had a great game plan, and they gave everything to Westwood in this game.
They played well. This was a good game to watch, great game to call. The kids gave everything. They had fumbles, touchdown, interceptions for 70 yards. Pooch kick recovered, and Glenrock never gave up. They're well coached. Jim Kirch is an excellent coach, and they gave Westwood everything they wanted. Now Westwood moves on to the semifinals like they did last year, play either Kittatinny or Marwa. So we'll see. Westwood played Marwa.
Right, it'll be tomorrow afternoon they're playing up in Kittatinny.
So you'll let us know, right?
We will find out.
Brian Carr will give us a call and let us know.
We will try to keep updates, everybody knows. Well, thanks again, guys. Good job.
Thank you very much.
All right, Brian, good stuff as usual with the boys from WCTV. And now let's get the outlook of Jimmy Abitabile. Jimmy, should it not rain? And should the weather give you the pick of the litter of games that you would choose to go to on Friday night? Why don't you lead us in a direction what you're thinking?
I'm thinking Wauquiez, undefeated Wauquiez, and undefeated Hasbrook Heights. Hasbrook Heights, we talked about that, as they say in the World Cup, the group of death, so to speak, some power teams in there. But, Hasbrook Heights, Wauquiez will be the third undefeated team in a row Hasbrook Heights taking on, obviously, Rutherford in the NJFCA playoffs. Last week, New Providence, and they got through with flying colors, 42-0. And Wauquiez, very talented, very athletic team. But, the way Hasbrook Heights is playing, they certainly have a very good shot in that. On Saturday, North Bergen, back in action, defeated Hackensack Friday night, 28-19. They're at Montclair. Montclair obviously missing their top football player, their linebacker. They avenged a loss to West Orange on week 1 this year. They won 35-0. Another game is parochial-wise. I think the best game all weekend will be Mater Day at DePaul. The 3-seed Mater Day from County, very talented, coming up to play DePaul. DePaul obviously a little bit depleted without Ronnie Hickman, their outstanding Ohio State commit. So that semifinal there the winner might very well be the champion in non-public Group 3.
Yeah, it's a lot of interesting stuff going on this weekend for sure. And I just want to backtrack a little bit to your Hasbrook Heights point. I don't know what they're saying off the record. I don't know what they're talking about in the shed. Maybe they are saying, disgruntled with the way things worked out about being a North 2, North 1. But publicly, at least, Nicky Del Calzo and his crew, they don't complain. They don't say, oh, this is so hard. Oh, we got screwed. Oh, we got that. All they do is go out and play who's put in front of them. And, Bri, for the most part, they just truck them every week after week. They take on all comers. A lot of football coaches, or a lot of coaches in general, will say, we'll play anybody anywhere. Nick Del Calzo and Hasbrook Heights, they really mean it.
Right. They come to play.
Yep.
They're stars. We've seen that against Rutherford. And again, this past week, Josiah Purdy came out and has 160 yards, receiving, a few touchdowns. And then you've got Spencer Lee throwing the ball over the field, almost 200 yards passing. And then Michael Robinson. They have 3 guys that are a threat, which makes them hard to defend. And Michael Robinson is a good, hard runner. He doesn't run for 200 yards, but they got all the other guys. So you can't just defend one guy there, and that's the difference, for them. I think that's what makes them better. And their defense is tough. The kids are tough. Bear on the sideline, he's always got them ready. They're always focused. He has their attention every play. What are we going to do, Coach? They got to stand in there, and then he gives them the sign, go with that play, switch it. And they're really on it. And the kids follow. The coaches have them, and they have a really good program. Obviously it's been successful. 1 losing season in 30 years.
Yeah.
So Coach Del Calzo, and what he does too, it's just not Nick running the show.
Right.
He lets Bear run the show. So Nick, is the commander-in-chief, but he lets his guys, like we heard with Don Jacobs say, Nick lets his coaches coach too.
Yeah,
they
but
have a good say.
Nick sets the tone. He sets the tone, and everybody falls in line behind him and goes off and does their jobs. But they had a big gripe as anybody in terms of playoff positioning, and said nothing. And won in huge fashion and can really, if they win a state championship, they will have the toughest road. I don't care what bracket you're talking about other than, non-public Group 4 as far as, like competition. And if they rise above and win it, it would really be something else to win a section. And then even if they went on to win their bowl game too. It's weird the way it sets up when you look at North 1, Group 1, which is a usually predominantly Bergen County small school bracket. There's only one left in Park Ridge. Same thing in North 1, Group 2, normally a Bergen County heavy bracket as well. And you got Newton against High Point and Kittatinny against Westwood as the only Bergen County public left in there. North 2, Group 2, Rutherford Mountain Lakes. That should be interesting. And as Brian was talking about before, Lyndhurst, Verona 2. North 1, Group 3, though, Jimmy, for me, local interest, that's where it's at. You got Round Post Sparta, we talked about that one, and Riverdale Paramus, the rematch. Paramus won the regular season matchup, but we have seen how tough DJ Nymphius can be on the second game of a back-to-back in any given season.
Yeah, no question. I was talking about that to someone in work today about Riverdale. You might beat them once in a regular season, but they've been able to turn the tables that second time around against Ramapo a couple of times, and you never go against Riverdale in a big spot. And that's nothing against Paramus; they're a wonderful team. But Riverdale just seems to be able to raise that level of play, that extra notch. And, they're going to have to do it at Paramus. I think that's very important. I think it'll be a big crowd Friday night. And, you can't say enough about the job Coach Joe Sabella has done at Paramus.
Absolutely not. I mean, go ahead. Were you going to jump in there, Brian?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
no, I didn't
okay. All right. Well, usually around Paramus time, you like to chime in because I think you're a closet Spartan fan.
Hey, we go back to when Paramus and Old Japan had their rivalry going back and forth for a number of years. You had John Robinson going against Devin Fuller.
Still the greatest game I've ever covered.
63-56.
Yep.
And it was like a pinball game. You just
really.
Touchdown to touchdown. It was probably one of the best games you saw in the playoffs too.
Yep.
And it's too bad somebody had to lose. So Paramus has been very good, and we've got you got Trevor Bopp coming up with Paramus. We got Kyle Jacobs there, and so they got a very good team. And Riverdale we've seen for a number of years. So yeah, very competitive sports, good teams, and traditional good teams. So it's exciting to see that. And then you want to talk about Group 4? I think Old Japan, who has kind of had a little bit of a down year, a few injuries. They're still there. A down year, but they're still in the playoffs, still winning games. Old Japan, has a rematch game against Wayne Valley. They can make it to the final by beating them. To beat them in the regular season, they got some nicks they have to overcome, but they are playing at home, so there is an advantage there. So the Old Japan, have a good opportunity there, and we talked about Wayne Hills. Wayne Hills play a good Morris Knowles team, so Group 4 is a competitive bracket as well.
No doubt. Old Japan, the number 2 seed. It's funny because I was just having this conversation yesterday when I was covering soccer. I was talking to Ramapo head coach Evan Baumgarten, and Ramapo has lost 3 games in soccer this year, and you think they were 0-15. People are like, what's wrong with the Raiders? They're in a section final with 3 losses, and people are saying, down year. Same thing with Old Japan. You say down year. They lost 2 games, one to Wayne Hills, and the other one to refresh my memory. I don't even remember, but in a 2-game stretch. So they got 2 losses going in. They're the number 2 seed in North 1 Group 4, and they're perceived to be having a tough season. The other one was to Ramapo. What am I thinking? They lost to Ramapo, who is the number 1 public school in North Jersey. So, but like you said, Old Japan has been doing it banged up all year long, and again, no excuses because of my proximity to the program, because there's not a football coach out there not ruining the loss of 1 player or 2 players, 3 players here and there to injuries. This is football, and they happen all the time. But Old Japan's been hit hard by it this year. I was at their Passaic Valley game on Friday night. I saw the first half. I saw the kids that were missing. There's some big play offensive players like Johnny Lohr. I don't know anybody's availability, and I wouldn't give it away even if I did. But if players like that, Chris D'Amico, the running back, if they're not playing, it's an uphill battle. against a Wayne Valley team that they beat 7-6 during the regular season. And when you look at Wayne Valley, they're playing their best football of the season. Down the stretch here, they won 2 straight games. They beat Morris Hills on the road to get here. They got some confidence, 45 points in that game against Morris Hills. So, Wayne Valley going to make it awfully tough on the home-standing Golden Knights over there. Northorn Group 5 we talked about. Jimmy's contemplating the North Bergen-Montclair game. Clifton-Ridgewood, another regular season rematch. Clifton is the number 2. They dispatched of Clifton pretty handily the first time around. But, Jimmy, let's give some kudos to Clifton this deep in the playoffs for the first time in a long time.
Coach Sinkyu took over the program 3 or 4 years ago, Ralph Sinkyu, and I tell you what, he was a hell of a football player at Clifton, and he's brought his type of game over into Clifton, physical, tough, running the football. The last 2 times they've gone into Ridgewood with high expectations, and I know they've been a little disappointed, but I'll tell you what, they would trade those 2 losses for a win on Friday night. And Ridgewood just keeps on going along, very, very consistent. Coach Johnson, 35-7 over Passaic Tech. Hopefully, if you're looking for a 1-2 matchup, you might get it with Montclair and Ridgewood. They've been the power in that section the last 5 or 6 years, and, it looks like that's the way it's headed.
Let's just give a shout-out to Union City, still alive in North 2 Group 5 as the number 5 seed with a home game against Union. Piscataway and Ridge on the other side of that bracket. And Brian, I only bring that up because Piscataway brought a unceremonious end to the season of the Bridgewater team that your beloved alma mater. Right, the Panthers, right.
Panthers, yeah. But I mean, honestly, based on the new playoff program, Bridgewater probably didn't deserve to be in there. A team like Bayonne probably should have been in there. They were 2-6, so a down year for them, but they still have a lot of athletes on the field, but just didn't have enough collectively to go up against these teams. Hey, they beat the number 3 seeded team last game, Union.
Right.
So, it tells you there's good athletes there, but Piscataway is the cream of the crop right now this year. And when I was in high school, by the way, too, Piscataway, my senior year, was a state championship team then as well. And we only lost to them, it was 7-6 or 8-6. We lost by a point or 2 points. So against a state championship team back when I was in high school. So, hey, it's hard. You have a good team you're up against, you're not going to always win, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that Brian just broke it down, going back to his high school days in the 1940s. I mean, it's a long-standing rivalry. We touched on non-public group 3. Right. Non-public grougoing to 4. Non-public group 4, I think. Non-public group 4, I think we can save till next week. I mean, that's going to be the overall state champion is going to come out of that bracket. We know that. The number 1 team in the state is going to come out of there. And they have an 8-team field left. I don't know if either one of you guys want to mention anything, but it looks like it's going to go in the favor of the favorites this week. And then next week in the semifinals is where it all begins, Jimmy.
Yeah, I tend to agree, but do not overlook Del Barton at Don Bosco. Del Barton lost in overtime to DePaul early in the season. Del Barton is a sneaky team. Don Bosco seems to be an up-and-down team. 2 weeks ago they played at Paramus Catholic, and quite honestly, we're lucky to get out of there. They're going to have to be able to run the football against Del Barton, but don't be surprised if Del Barton hangs in that game.
Jimmy, Brian, anything you want to say about non-public group 4?
Yeah, I kind of think it's pretty much the favorites. The top 4 teams should dominate, likely. And then we'll see next week is kind of where the really playoffs will start. So you never know. Somebody could surprise possibly. But I don't expect it at this point. I really don't. But congratulations, by the way, Seton Hall Prep coach Billy Fitzgerald, formerly St. Peter's Prep offensive coordinator. Billy won his first playoff win in his first season there at Seton Hall Prep. And by the way, Coach was also a quarterback coach at Dumont when my son played. So Billy's a really good guy. Billy was a quarterback at Union College as well in college and did very well up there after he came out of St. Peter's as a quarterback there.
Now, Jimmy, I don't know if Brian brought that up just to tout the credentials of another former Dumont Husky or to rub it in on you about the Seton Hall Prep Paramus Catholic result. Either way.
No.
Well, you know the old saying, all roads lead to Dumont. There's another perfect example of that. But and as far as Seton Hall Prep, 17-0 over Paramus Catholic. It was a 3-0 game, middle of the second quarter. Unfortunately, Paramus Catholic's very good sophomore quarterback Dorian Novell went out with a concussion, and that kind of shifted the power to Seton Hall Prep. It was 10-0. With about 4 minutes left, and they scored on a fourth down play. Congratulations to Seton Hall Prep. And, St. Augustine Prep beat Notre Dame. No surprise there. But how would you like to be St. Augustine, who is just outside of Atlantic City, having to drive up to the Parkway to Montvale? I mean, it's probably a 2.5-hour ride, and that's not going to be a fun ride. But, as you mentioned, next week we'll get into non-public 4 with some very, very good matchups in the semis.
Yeah, 2.5 hours up the Parkway, a running clock midway through the second quarter, back in the bus on the way home. See you next week on the Football Show.
Follow the leader.